Welcome to the Nourishment Mindset Podcast, your guide to good food, good health, and a good life. And now, here's your host, Nutrition Network advisor and author of the Nourishment Mindset, Dixie Huey.
Happy Transformation Tuesday, y'all. Welcome to or back to the Nourishment Mindset Podcast, where we are on a metabolic mission to reverse chronic lifestyle conditions and achieve vitality through real whole foods and the pleasures of the table. Today, I have a special guest here. His name is Aaron Williams, and Aaron and I met, oh my goodness, we might go back almost 20 years, maybe not quite that far, but we worked together on a number of projects in the wine industry. And tell me if I've got the chronological order right, Aaron. Did we meet at Oregon Olive Mill?
I think that was the first time that we met. You were, I believe, focusing on PR, not just PR, but marketing, maybe a whole rebrand for the organization. I was working for the Durant at that time, which I learned a lot there. I was actually listening to one of your shows recently, and you were talking about kind of olive oil and the differences between some seed oils and different processing methods. And I was just thinking back to all the things that I learned there, and some of them were from you. So yeah, I think that was the first time we met.
Yes, and I loved this, y'all. If you're ever in Oregon, or if you just want to buy some awesome domestic olive oil, Oregon Olive Mill. And now I believe they're just Durant. They've done a whole nother rebrand, but anywho, their olive oil is beautiful. And so that's how Aaron and I met. And speaking of olive oil, you are still involved in olive oil. So tell us about that, Aaron.
Yeah, I'd love to. So yeah, and you were right. They did. They're just Durant, Oregon now. Definitely a great place to go. I'd recommend, and that is where I sort of cut my teeth with olive oil. I'm Italian, so it's always been part of the family cuisine. I've been aware of quality olive oil, but I really didn't know what that meant. And working at Durant, that's when it all started to kind of sink in. And I think one of the things I did was read that book, Extra Virginity, which was amazing, and was learning from all of the folks that I was working with and Paul, and really just sunk in that, and that was one of the first moments for me where I recognized how the quality of ingredients and how things are processed really matters. And so I just sort of fell in love with the concept of, like fresh pressed olive oil, and really started to understand like the differences between extra virgin and more mass produced olive oils, and could really taste and feel the difference. And so I, became pretty passionate about it. And back then I had this idea in my head. I'm originally from Santa Cruz, California, and cannabis has always been a part of my the culture growing up, and a part of my world. And so I've always kind of seen it as medicine and a way to help heal my body. Although I think in my early days, I didn't recognize how much of that was going on until, kind of post collegiate athletics. And so, and that was at that time that I was working at Durant and sort of falling in love with fine food, fine wine, and olive oil, and the idea of blending the two kind of came to me when I was in that job. And so fast forward to today, we have Fender's Blue. Hemp is our company, and so we grow certified organic hemp and process it. And right now we have ingestible products. We have a few products in our lineup, and a blend of hemp extract and extra virgin olive oil is one of them. So kind of just a fun, unique way to get it into your system.
Ooh, my weird screen is sort of making it. If y'all are watching this on YouTube, there we go. Thank you. I have my back screen here, but
my camera is just delicious. Okay, but
No, I have gotten to taste this, so we'll get to that. But I want to go into a part of your story that is fascinating to me because I've been a lifelong athlete and I've had my share of injuries, surgeries, that sort of thing. My understanding is that you had 10 surgeries post-college football and hemp helped you. So y'all, this isn't just West Coast hippie shit. This is like, this is the real deal. But I don't know anything about hemp, right? I did a little bit of, in college or whatever, but and maybe after. But how is this healing? I thought it was for partying, but hemp is not for partying. This is different. So tell us your story there.
Yeah, thank you so much. So I love the way you kind of set up the question there as well. I mean, there's definitely a recreational component to cannabis in general. And when I say cannabis as well, that is, I like to use wine as the analogy here. So
Ooh, goody.
Vitis vinifera is the species of wine grapes, and within that there are thousands of different wine grape varieties. And so for cannabis, it's cannabis sativa. And what we call hemp, you kind of think of like maybe hemp production for paper, textiles, that kind of hemp.
Okay.
That is still within the family, although those are different kind of varieties that you would grow for those kinds of output products. But we kind of use the term hemp, and really it kind of comes back to the government as well and regulation that hemp is anything that is classified as hemp per our regulations is flower, cannabis sativa flower that is at harvest less than 0.3% THC by dry weight. And so really, again, going back to the wine grape analogy, we know we have the species of wine grapes, but then within that there's Pinot Noir, Chardonnay, Cabernet, whatever variety you can think of. At harvest, those they have different chemical compositions, right? Even to the point where the skins are different colors, and we know how that affects the wine that we drink. So going back to hemp, cannabis sativa, within that there are varieties that at harvest will chemically have really low concentrations of THC and high concentrations of CBD. And so what we're growing is hemp for CBD production. And there, again, within that, you can grow plants that are high in THC or a combination. There's really a ton of them. And maybe if you go into a recreational store, you hear a lot of the names that they associate with them, which are usually pretty creative West Coast hippie style names, like a Blue Dream or something like that. But the interesting thing, kind of like wine grapes, is that you can take the same plant material and put it in different environments that it's growing and feed it different things and end up with something at least slightly different at harvest. And so
interesting.
Yeah, very much so. You'll see commonalities like you would with and this is true in the wine world as well. You give two vineyard managers and winemakers the same Pinot Noir, you put it in a different landscape, and then you process it a little bit differently. There might be some similarities in those wines that you're tasting, but they're still both pretty, they're both Pinot Noir. You could tell they're the same variety. So same is kind of true in cannabis. And so yeah, and then going back to my story personally, I played college football, and in high school it was football, basketball, and track. And during at least from my experience, I worked really hard. That was my thing. Like I wanted to play sports professionally, and I thought that the way to get there was to work as hard as humanly possible. And so I like to tell the story that, or give an example that in my senior year of high school, I was getting prepared to play college football, and I would get off at noon because I planned my schedule that way. I got a lot of my classes done in junior year or whatever. And so I would get off at noon, and then I would power lift for a few hours.
Ooh,
and
a
then,
few hours.
Yeah, and then I would go to basketball practice, sometimes with a little jog in between. I'd go to basketball practice, that'd be 3 hours. And then if I really felt like I was in for some more, I would go to the local courts, asphalt courts, and play, pick up basketball with some friends or whoever's around. And looking back on that, I just think it's amazing that the human body, especially a young one, can do those kinds of things and subject itself to that much work. And then two, it's clear as day that I definitely, overworked myself in a lot of ways. And then with that as well, I ended up going on to play, physical game in college, and was still carried that kind of work ethic through, and maybe lack of awareness of rest and how important rest is, and at that time too, maybe how important food is. And
Right.
I definitely got a lot of calories in. That's what we were taught to do, but maybe the diet as a whole wasn't as nutritious as it could have been, and definitely had some processed foods that I was consuming at that time. And so I really just wore my body down. And then there's the component of the sport being pretty physical in nature. So I had a few, injuries in game or in play from freak, kind of accidents. And and so it resulted in 10 surgeries to date. And my most recent was back in December of December of 2021. So I'm over a year out of that one. And I had this unique thing called thoracic outlet syndrome. And so between your first rib and your collarbone, you have some veins and nerves that go through that thoracic outlet. And when you have this syndrome, it basically means that gap is just too small. And so there's some pinching that happens on those nerves and veins. And what happened to me, and this doesn't necessarily happen to everyone, but it created some DVTs or blood clots in my arm. And so a little, dangerous, of course. And the diagnosis and then process after that was to have a couple surgeries to try to save the vein, clean it out, as well as remove my first rib. And whenever I say that, people think, like they think of a big rib, of your rib cage getting removed. It's definitely a significant thing to have the rib that I had removed, but it is your first rib, the one that kind of floats a little bit at the top, doesn't necessarily wrap all the way around. Bad analogy for a food podcast, but it kind of looks like a little pork spare rib.
I was thinking, was it a cow rib? Is it a pork rib?
Okay, yeah, so it's a good chunk of bone, and they kind of like pull it out under my armpit. Anyway, getting a little too graphic here, but I ended up having some complications when that happened the first time, and then I had to have it done the second time, had some complications as well. But all in all, I ended up having to get several chest tubes because of, and I'll spare you the details, things that happened. But what my previous injuries and definitely those experiences led to a lot of stiffness, scar tissue, like muscle damage, all sorts of things that you can think of when tubes are being shoved in me. And I'm getting surgery on my hip, my knee, because I've torn cartilage and torn ligaments and all sorts of stuff. So definitely live with chronic pain. And for me, I never in all of those surgery experiences, I had every pain medicine you could think of prescribed to me, and always felt awful on those medicines. I mean, they work, they're necessary in a surgery setting, of course. I mean, the cocktail that you list that you look at for what went into you, like pre-surgery with the anesthesia and everything, is pretty robust. But obviously you need that when you're going under the knife. But yeah, I just felt felt awful on those medicines. It's always been hard for me to recover from surgeries, especially if I've had a few more, or I mean, especially the latter ones, just one after another. Body just really gets broken down. And I don't have any scientific data behind this, but I know that the system is pretty well sanitized during the surgery process, and that's definitely affected my gut microbiome. And
Oh, yes.
so it's just felt like a long road to recovery, and it continues, and will be many, many more years. I plan to dedicate the rest of my life to really what I'm putting in my body matters so much. So it's nutrition, it's the way that I move, and then I like cannabis, and CBD in particular plays a huge role for me as a way to help with some of that stiffness and pain, reducing inflammation. And so that's been my experience with it. And one of my last wine jobs, I was working for Linfield University, and they're starting a wine education program, and amazing experience. And towards the end of it, we had recruited a world-class professor and climatologist, a guy named Greg Jones, and got a good donation. I felt like the program was in a really good spot, and I also always had this kind of entrepreneurial itch, and at the same time was sort of experimenting with making pain and inflammation reducing, salves and stuff at home.
Wow.
And so that's kind of where it all started for me. And then fast forward a few years, and it was projected that with the 2018 Farm Bill, that the production of hemp for CBD was going to be legalized, and all this was kind of happening all at once. And so I thought, well, let's jump in and try to do this. And so we started a little farming operation, all certified organic. We were actually one of the first certified organic hemp farms in the country. And then my goal was to get it's been a whirlwind for sure. And then my goal was to get to the point where we had some retail products, because I had this sort of farm to wellness. And I think
Love that.
like when you were in the fine food world, like in the trenches doing, marketing and PR and everything that you did, I know that's probably not all encompassing the way I said it, but farm to table was really something that was on everyone's minds, because of exactly what you do, Dixie, is educate people on ingredients that are produced mindfully, that don't have harmful chemicals and things that really shut down some of our systems and affect us negatively. And so it was then where that idea of, well, it's not just food, it's the other things that we consume as well that are important. And so I just had that in my mindset, that I really wanted to produce a product that didn't deal in any of that. It was just as natural as possible. And so that's where we are today. I could definitely keep talking about it for
so
hours. It's been
awesome.
fun. Thank you.
I love the story. I mean, you can't make this stuff up, right? There's no PR person that can come up with this. This is the real deal. So, how has hemp and CBD in particular helped you? Is it like, and you could go on the physiological route, you could just go on the psychological route, or just what you physically feel. But I'm just curious, is it because it enables you to relax and then inflammation sort of deflates? So what is actually happening inside the body?
It's a great question. So we have something called the endocannabinoid system, and it was actually discovered originally by some Israeli researchers through cannabis research. And so it's one of the, I guess, if not the largest intracellular communication networks that we have in our body. We produce cannabinoids ourselves. They're kind of like signaling molecules. And then there are exocannabinoids, so endo meaning inside, exo anything outside the body.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course. And so in the plant world, there are tons of cannabinoids everywhere, and so sometimes we call them phytocannabinoids. And within the hemp or cannabis plant, so THC, the cannabinoid most known for mental intoxication,
Party
or
time.
psychotropic effects. Yeah, the party time that you were talking about, the more recreational. However, I do use that as medicine as well. I actually find some really powerful like muscle relaxation benefits from THC. And then when you couple that with movement, it can be pretty powerful. And then there's a spiritual element to it as well. But CBD is another cannabinoid. There are hundreds. There's ones we haven't even named or you really discovered their effects at this point. CBN is a popular one that we've found helps aid in sleep. I'm always careful to make claims as well because this is an industry that is pending more regulation. And actually, as an operator, that we pride ourselves on doing everything to regulatory to a T. Not everyone, as you can imagine, does, but we actually are often wanting more regulation and clarity around some of the gray areas in the industry. But that's a little bit of a tangent. Going back to your question, those cannabinoids and CBD I found was really powerful in reducing inflammation. So as it enters the body, it's signaling in all throughout to have that effect. And I find power in using it topically as well as ingesting it. And so that's kind of what's going on. And anecdotally, it was just something that was really working for me when I wanted to not be on pain pills, really in a lot of pain every day, and dealing with a lot of that post-surgery recovery. It was amazing what I was noticing. My knee would be swollen, and because I had injured it or like kind of tweaked it after a few years after my knee surgery, and it ballooned up, and I was putting on my homemade salve, and there are other great essential oils and other plant-based ingredients that were in that also had anti-inflammatory effects as well. And I would put it on, and the next day I would see a noticeable difference, and it would feel better. And so
Wow.
it was really when it started to experience the benefits. And so that's kind of what's going on in the body. There's a lot of research going on now as well that it's been legalized. Not everyone's ready to jump on the research train, but that's something we're really looking forward to as more and more research comes out about the other ways that certain cannabinoids are binding to these receptors throughout our body.
So if any of y'all listeners in the beginning of this episode were like, oh boy, here's some West Coast pothead from Santa Cruz, I think, Aaron, you have shown us that this, people have preconceived notions of things. And that's why I was so excited to talk to you because, as I said, I don't know anything about this. It's fascinating to me, but here's what I'm thinking as you're describing your homemade salves. Like, you're a modern day medicine man, I mean, it's so cool, right? That's A. B, I can't help but ask this question. So in our world, you have surgery, you're recovering, you're popping the pain pills. I mean, I've had hip surgery. I needed some pain pills. I too, they have such awful psychological effects on me. My pain pill was drinking Pinot Noir. I did 2 days of that post-hip surgery, the pain pills, and I was like, I can't, anyway, won't go into those details. However, what I want to ask you is, because we accept pharmacology, does anyone give you shit for this? I mean, I know you're in Oregon, so people are more progressive and maybe relaxed about it, but have you had pushback?
It's a great question. I would say most people are curious. There's a whole host of folks, like you said, especially being on the West Coast, that are very into it naturally. It's been a part of their world. They're not scared of it. It's kind of takes you back all the way to Prohibition, which lasted many years, decades. And, this was a crop that was widely planted and used for paper. I think the Constitution was printed on hemp paper, which again,
Did not know that.
different varieties. George Washington had a lot of hemp that he was growing, and really I think it was some lobbying against the hemp industry from timber, I think, for paper, and plastics industry as well, because it's amazing plants for not just for cannabinoids, which are coming from the flower of the plant, whereas a lot of the textiles are coming from the stalks of the plant, and so different varieties you would grow for the kind of stocky elements. So anyway, with that prohibition and sort of the lobbying against, what it ended up being kind of a campaign that they was built around racism and scary people of color that were smoking this substance and the dangerous to be around, right? That was a lot of what you saw, which, as you can imagine, fast forwarding to today, that is no wonder people are afraid of the plant, right?
Yeah. Sounds like a massive PR campaign.
It does, as you know. And also, to be fair, because THC has the psychoactive component, I have met plenty of people that have had negative experiences with it.
Sure.
And I think, that comes down to, maybe consuming too much of it, or, being in the wrong setting with the wrong people. That can happen, just like you can drink too much alcohol, right? And have a negative experience, right? Not at all possible, right? But I mean, you take having a glass of red wine in moderation being something that's good for you, to a lot of people. I kind of have the same mindset with THC. When it's used intentionally, it can be very helpful. And so, and you kind of touched on this before. I feel like a glass of Pinot Noir and wine can be a wellness tool when used thoughtfully as well. So anyway, yeah, it's you get the gut reaction sometimes. Oh, you grow pot, but most people are just kind of curious about it, I would say.
Well, good. So the name Fender's Blue, what does that mean? It's not a car fender.
Yes. Sometimes I use a guitar as a Fender like the guitar. But yeah, so we our very first grow site partnered with a colleague that was had some extra land that also grew grapes, and he and a local organization did this really great work to preserve an endemic butterfly to the Willamette Valley. It's called the Fender's Blue butterfly, and was thought to be extinct at one point, but was actually found and brought back to life with great work of people like Di Crisp and folks at the Institute for Applied Ecology. And so right next to this field where we were growing was this hillside that was protected with the Kincaid's lupin, which is the host plant for the Fender's Blue butterfly. And so it was kind of our neighbor and mascot, and we just thought, why not name it after the butterfly? Because it kind of connects to our story. It also connects to the idea of why, not just for humans and producing products that we're going to be consuming, and we want those to be natural and organic, but also why you'd want to farm organically and thoughtfully for the biodiversity around the farm as well. So it just kind of all made sense and was something that we felt really good about being the kind of the mini face of the brand.
I love it. Bravo. This former marketer, that just ties it. The story is there, that the packaging is beautiful, but because, we're both foodies and winies, it wouldn't be right to just talk about the packaging and the story. What I'm holding here, this Fender's Blue Farm to Wellness. Now help me, this is not an olive variety that I'm familiar with from my work with Durant. Is it Arbosana?
Yes, perfect. Yep.
Okay. So when I enjoy this, and I do shoot olive oil, I do recommend the book that Aaron mentioned, Extra Virginity. Sounds a little saucy, but it's phenomenal, even if you're not super obsessed with olive oil like we are. But it's this beautiful kind of golden, buttery, just awesome fruitiness, but I can definitely taste. So what am I tasting? Is it CBD? Is it hemp? Like you said, it's the flower that we're using. So that it's like olive oil infused with, you tell us.
Yes. So there are a bunch of different ways you can process cannabis flower or hemp flower. And so we use a process called CO2 supercritical, where we take dried hemp flower. So we've grown it, we've hand harvested the flower, and then we've dried it, kind of in a gentle drying process. We did hang drying for most of what we do, and then what we'll do is then grind it up and then put it into stainless steel canisters that then CO2 goes into, and with time, pressure, and temperature, the CO2 becomes supercritical. So this is a method that's been around for many years. It's a very safe and very clean way to process botanicals. And so, with time, pressure, and temperature, the CO2 it becomes supercritical, where it's a gas and a liquid at the same time. And so it helps kind of like penetrate the plant and extract, and you can adjust the settings to what you're trying to extract. And so we do kind of I like to equate it to like extra virgin olive oil processing, where we do kind of like a low and slow, gentle kind of processing of it. And we're trying to preserve like the natural precursor to CBD, CBDA, CBD, all the as much of the terpenes as we can as well. So probably what you're tasting is some of those terpenes, which are like basically like smell molecules. They're in everything, and so they also have therapeutic benefits themselves. And so so we make that hemp extract, as I call it, and then we just blend that into the extra virgin olive oil. You'll notice that it doesn't say extra virgin on the front, because I learned that anytime you add anything to extra virgin olive oil, it's technically not extra virgin olive oil anymore.
Good to know. It is, but it isn't.
It is, but it isn't, exactly. And so we just gently blend it in mechanically, and then bottle it up, and that's all it is just those two ingredients, both certified organic, and we say use it as a finishing oil. It's because of its quality. Any quality olive oil, you certainly can cook with it, and if your budget allows, I mean, use the best quality olive oil for when you're cooking as well. But typically, if you're consuming extra virgin olive oil, really good extra virgin olive oil, consuming it raw, so to speak, is the best way too. Like you said, just shoot it, pour it over your meal after you've cooked it. And so that's pretty much what we do. And you're tasting some of the hemp in there as well. And so high CBD, high CBDA, and all the goodness that comes with the olive oil. So I'm glad you like it.
I love it. I do. I love it. You also sent me this turmeric paste, and my husband cooked some vegetables in this. Oh my gosh. This stuff, I could spoon this. Like, this is a little bit strange. I can spoon this and just enjoy it. It would pair beautifully with Sauvignon Blanc. But I have to ask you, when we serve these vegetables in the salad to my kid, do we get our kid high?
It's a great question. So you notice on there as well that it says full spectrum. So anytime you see full spectrum, that means that what we're doing in the vein of not trying to process, further, right? The minimal processing, kind of like extra virgin olive oil, is what we're trying to do. And we certainly could take out that natural low volume of THC that's in it, but we choose not to, because we lose other elements when we do that post-processing, some of the terpenes, some of the other cannabinoids. And so the more you can keep that original extract from the CBD intact, the better. And so that's why we do full spectrum. You will see other CBD products out there that are made from like a CBD isolate, where you can extract to the point where you have a CBD powder, essentially. That's 99.9% the CBD molecule. And those are great products as well. But what I found is that the less you process, the better it works for me. And so that's why we do it that way. And so I do always say, like, figure out what works best for you in terms of dosing and consumption. You tend to get relaxed, the anti-inflammatory benefits, muscle relaxation. I also wasn't my intention to originally consume cannabis and hemp and CBD for this purpose, but I do get the calming kind of anti-anxiety effects, aids in sleep for me as well, and especially with the pain, I think there's maybe something going on with all of that, right? But anyway, no, I don't think your kids are necessarily getting high from, just a normal amount, but I would say don't let them drink the whole bottle at once.
Right.
They might get high from that.
Now I can drink the whole bottle if I want to. That's between me and my maker. So,
yes.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Oh, of course.
I am curious, where can we find you? And then B, if you wouldn't mind, if you happen to have like a tableside tradition, you said you're from Italian family, I would love for you to share I'm all about the pleasures of the table. So A, where do we find Fender's Blue? And B, any tableside pleasurable tradition you wish to share?
Yeah, I love that. And that can be unrelated to the products, or
sure, anything,
or how I incorporate them. Well, I'll kind of think from a product standpoint, but yeah, thank you so much. So fendersbluehemp.com is where we sell, and we ship to most states. There are some states that have banned the purchasing or selling into of these kinds of products, and so we don't ship there. But I believe Florida is not one of them, meaning we can ship to Florida. So that's where you can get them. Or if you're local to Oregon, we're at a lot of different farmers markets, like the Beaverton Farmers Market, which is an amazing market. We try to go to as many as we can in the area. Some fun foodie events like Snack Fest or other events like Crafty Wonderland is another great one. But we try to get out and about as much as we can. But online, we do some local delivery around here as well. And then, in terms of a tradition, I mean, olive oil, just pouring it on everything, or dipping things into it, just taking shots of it. That's something I got from my time at Durant, actually. And I would just take a little shot when I got to work, and then one before I left, and that definitely became a tradition. But I would say just enjoying, trying to think of a specific table side. I think we, folks in my world that really value like the quality of food and wine and olive oil. I think it's just getting together, and a lot of my friends, we like to bring something. I would say maybe that's the tradition. We like to bring something to when we come over for dinner, a new product. And especially now that MacKenzie, who I haven't mentioned, who is my life and business partner, who works on the business with me, she's amazing, big reason for our success. She and we've met so many cool people in the world of being makers and doing farmers markets and other markets. And so we're always looking for new local, mindfully made products that we can bring and share. And so I think maybe that's the best tradition. Awesome. I'd like to say is, bring something that you love to someone else.
Oh, That
that you
is
can
so
share?
great. I love it. It's so apropos because in the episode prior to this, I talked about how important it is. I interviewed farmer Tom Scannell from a local Florida farm here called Pine Shine, and we were talking about just the importance of supporting local farms. So that is like a beautiful tie-in, and I love the idea of like bringing new things to share, right? It's this element of discovery at the table. There's so many reasons to sit at a table and enjoy food. And I talk a lot about connection and pleasure and that sort of thing, but you've got a new one for me. That's discovery. So I really appreciate what you're doing. It is so fun to reconnect. Thank you so much for spending time with us today, Aaron. It's been fun.
It's been a blast. And thank you. And thank you for what you're doing, because it's, as you know, I mean, this is preaching to the choir here. A lot of what is available for people to eat is not necessarily great for you, and what you put in your body matters. So thank you for spreading the good word.
All right, that's a perfect note to end on, y'all. Thank you so much for listening to the Nourishment Mindset podcast. Go to fendersbluehemp.com. Get your kids a relaxing sleep with some of this awesome olive oil. If you haven't bought my book, The Nourishment Mindset, it's on Amazon and it's on my website, favorfat.com. And I compete with Amazon, so I do free shipping and I sign your copy. And you can find me at favorfat.substack.com if you haven't yet subscribed. Many thanks to y'all. Sante. Have a nourished week. Bye-bye.